All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the August Georgia Healthy Farmer Mindset virtual meeting. And we are going to have a really informative topic today, which will be on safety challenges and information and education around the topic of these, what is popularly known as side-by-sides on many Georgia farms and on our rural roads. And so we're pleased to have Kyle Haney and Mason Dean from the University of Georgia's program. They're typically are working with Agribility, which is an amazing program, and I hope they'll tell us a little bit about that as well before we get into our safety topic. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle and Mason and let them get started.
Thanks, John. While Mason's pulling up the PowerPoint, I'll just share a little bit, like you mentioned, about Agribility. But the Agribility program is a free service that helps farmers who've had an injury or a disability be able to keep farming. And we actually go out and do an on-farm assessment with them and identify assistive technology needs that will accommodate for their limitations on the farm, and then look at technology that's available and equipment available for them to be able to better complete the task on the farm. One of the things that we're always concerned about with the Agribility program is how to prevent secondary injuries on the farm. And there are a lot of injuries that are occurring right now with UTVs and ATVs in the farming uh, industry. The problem has really expanded a lot recently for us. Um, they're great on farms and they're indispensable tools, and you'd much rather hop on in a UTV than in a truck or a vehicle to travel around the farm. But they're getting out more and more on the roadways, and farmers, of course, have to travel between fields. But we just want to make sure people are safe on this, on the UTVs, and really farm safety as a whole is the realm that we try and do some extra education in. And these unfortunately are where the top fatalities are coming in the agricultural industry right now, across the country. And so we wanted to add some extra emphasis around UTVs and ATVs. And so we were able to get a grant from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety to be able to really focus on providing education and preventative resources as people are utilizing these on the roadways now. So I'll turn it over to Mason, and he's going to go through the beginning of our presentation.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so like Kyle said, this is in partnership with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety and administered by our program, Farm Again. And the ultimate goal is to prevent and lessen the instances of UTV crashes on roadways. In turn, hopefully prevent the injuries and fatalities that we've seen increase greatly since Georgia has changed the laws. I think in the end of 2023 when you could start using UTVs on Georgia roadways, and Kyle will talk a little bit about the laws and the requirements later on. Anyways, kind of our tagline for this is pavement is not your playground. Staying legal, staying safe, UTVs on Georgia roadways. A lot of people who use these side by sides are using them for the functionality use around a farm or around, large pieces of property. But a lot of people are also just using them to go out and enjoy riding around on, and may not be following the laws and regulations on what they're supposed to be doing to have their UTV on the roadway in Georgia. So that's really our ultimate goal, is to make sure just the general public is aware of what they need to do to be able to actually access roadways with their side by sides and where they can and cannot ride them. Kind of some unsettling numbers. Georgia has the fifth highest number of reported fatalities in the nation for off-road highway vehicle crashes. So that means an off-road vehicle being used on roadways, and the crashes, and we're the fifth highest in the nation for fatalities involving those types of collisions. So that's, not a good number. That's not something that you want to be in the top of. So we're kind of trying to address that and work to bring those numbers down. This is kind of just a mashup of several news articles or news from news stations. involving that. So I'm just going to play this video. I may not play it all the way through to the end. We'll see.
Has died after a UTV accident. Now, this makes the third deadly UTV accident in South Georgia in the past week. What started as a family UTV ride turned deadly after a crash, killing one teenager.
Some thoughts and prayers to those families have been affected.
One person is dead after an ATV crash in Bacon County. A fatal ATV crash in Chatham County killed a 16-year-old this weekend. Officials say Coach Tony Dimitri died in an accident involving a side-by-side. One person is dead in Coffee County following a crash between a Ram truck and an ATV. Four-wheeler was overturned in a ditch and one person was thrown from a car. They were pronounced dead at the scene. UTV overturned, ejecting the 11-year-old. And then coming to a rest on top of the child.
We can go and we can what if this to death, or what if they done this, or what if they done that. But the fact of the matter is it happened. We go back and we look at how we can correct that in the future, how we can educate the public.
So that video just really kind of gets out the emphasis of how often this is occurring across the state. And we have this map here where we're actually mapping the accidents that have happened around the state. This is far from comprehensive of all the accidents. Most of these we can find related back to a news article. Of course, not everything is going to make a news publication. It really just depends on where it happened and who's actually paying attention to make those publications. So we don't get all the data for that from this article. Now, there's, of course, the DOT has a large database where we can go back and look up a lot more information. So we've got some figures that kind of come out of that as well. But this map, we're going to put it onto our website, and where you can hover over the highlighted counties that show an accident. And then you can actually go to the news article and read about the accident so you can see what happened in the different accidents. So we're developing that right now to get published out onto our website. But you can see this isn't just like a regional problem in the state. I mean, it's essentially occurring everywhere across the state, whether it's in rural or urban communities. And we've got a little bit of a graphic about that as well. So I'll get into that in a second. But it's really just making sure people understand these laws and these regulations, and hopefully we can start seeing a less and less incidences of this happening. So a couple of these broken out. This one on the left side of the page was in Chattooga County. It was a single UTV accident. He lost control going around a curve, slammed into a guardrail, and he was ejected from the vehicle 80 feet into the woods. The vehicle overturned and continued to coast down along the guardrail for another 169 feet. The second one here, this happened in Macon County, actually about 2 weeks after we were in Macon County talking to the schools about UTV safety. And it was a 27 and 28-year-old male. They were riding a little after midnight, and they were on a dirt road and came to a paved road and did not stop, and just pulled out in front of an 18-wheeler. And so they both lost their lives in that collision. The other two here, one was a single UTV accident with no fatalities in Banks County, but severe injuries. Two people were critically injured and, were hospitalized for extended time. And then our final one here, this was actually in Bacon County. The day before this accident, I was actually at the Agricultural Extension Agent's quarterly update talking about this program, and Bacon County fell within that region that I was talking to that day. And so this happened the very next day in one of the counties where the agents was there for the presentation. So we're actually working with that agent and some agents in surrounding counties to try to pull together a UTV safety day training, or ATV and UTV, because we've got another ag extension agent in another county who does a lot with four-wheelers. So we're working with them to pull that together, just because there's been several incidences in those three counties here very recently. So hopefully we can, kind of strike while the iron is hot type of thing and get out there and get the public involvement, because it's a topic that's on everybody's mind right now in those areas. This was a press release that the Department of Public Safety released, and this is from 2025. but it just shows 14 off-road vehicle fatalities statewide from January 1st to June 20th of 2025. So, it's something that's happening at an alarming rate. It's not something that you really think about when you hop on a side-by-side to go do something. If it's a farmer traveling from one field to the next, most of our farm properties in Georgia are disjointed. A lot of farmers may have 50 acres in one area, and then a mile down the road have another 100 acres over here. And they're commonly using these side-by-sides to get around because they're handy to get around on the farm. They'll go a lot of places a pickup truck won't go. They're easy to hop in and out of. They're quite nice to work out of. So they're just becoming very commonplace as one of the major vehicles that farmers are using to travel around the farm. But not only that, they're also letting teenagers drive them, their kids or their grandkids or nieces or nephews. They're letting them use them around the farm. So, really highlighting the dangers of using these on the roadways and making sure that these vehicles are adhering to the laws that require them to be on the roadway is what this is really all about, to try to slow this down. So when we look at where these accidents are happening, they're more prevalent actually in urban areas. But when you break out the injuries that occur from them, you see a large portion of the more serious injuries actually happen in the rural communities. So in the urban areas between 2020 and 2024, there were a little over 2,000 accidents involving ATVs in urban communities, whereas there's only around 890 in rural communities. But in the urban areas, only 1,000 or only 100 of those, 130 of those resulted in serious injuries, whereas over 300 resulted in serious injuries in rural communities. And then we look at the ages for the under 19 category. It's almost 4 times as likely for the rural community, the kids who were involved in an ATV accident in the rural communities, to have a serious injury. And that pretty much follows through with fatalities as well. In the urban communities, only 9 under the age of 19 had a fatality involved in an ATV accident, whereas 41 under the age of 19 had a fatality involved in an ATV accident. So those rates kind of translate, both of the serious injuries and the fatalities, regardless of the fact that, less than 1/3 of the accidents are happening in rural communities. So it's really kind of a problem that we're seeing is, there's a lot more open space, there's a lot more opportunity for these accidents to happen, and there's less accessibility to emergency care after an accident. So those are some of the big problems we're facing here in our rural communities, and rural pretty much almost always is synonymous with agriculture here in the state of Georgia. So what we're doing about this is safety trainings. So we've hosted one safety training so far, as well as some public outreach programs. We have another safety training upcoming in September, possibly 2 now. We had an email this morning that came across, so we're going to try to get a second one in September, where we do a pre-test and then we do a post-test. And so in the first one we did, the pre-test response showed variability and some misunderstanding of the Georgia roadway laws and equipment required for the safety risk. And this was with agricultural extension agents. So this was, people that are probably more likely to be exposed to these laws and regulations. We haven't done something with just the general public. So that next one we're going to do will include more general public. So this will probably give us a better gauge of what just the general public understands about the laws and regulations. And then the post-test reflected consistent selection of the correct answers related to legal roadway usage, required safety equipment, and the dangers of rollover incidences and alcohol use. Additional measures also improved, with participants overwhelmingly reporting stronger agreement that roadway riding is a high risk, safety equipment is essential, and behavior change is necessary. And participants indicated a strong intention to adopt safer practices, including avoiding ATV roadway usage, complying with legal requirements, and wearing protective gear, and educating others. So these are just kind of the results of those pre and post tests. You can see some of these questions, and we can provide what the questions were if y'all would like to see that. Some of these questions, like question number 3, was almost missed across the board by most of the respondents, whereas afterwards in the test, most of the respondents actually got that question correct. So the average score the first time around was a little over 75, and then the second time around was over 90%. So that, kind of shows some positive results in understanding what those laws and safety requirements are. And then the attitudes, the really two that stand out are the question number 3 and the question number 6, or statements 3 and 6, which are, I understand the Georgia laws in regards to using UTVs on the roadways. And we can see that, either it was somewhat disagree or neutral or worse on that one for number 3. And then on number 6, you can just see a strong likelihood that the people who took this statement assessment are likely to change or improve their safety behaviors when operating UTVs in Georgia on the roadways. Now I'm going to hand it over to Kyle, and he'll kind of talk about some of the differences in the laws around them in Georgia.
We've mentioned a lot today on the UTVs, ATVs, and both of them are used widely on farms and in agriculture, but also a lot for recreational use. They a lot of times get used interchangeably, and many of the news articles you'll see, and even the um, reporting data that goes to like the Department of Transportation, a lot of times they are misused in their classifications. But with the law, specifically here in Georgia, like Mason mentioned, back in 2023, it became legal for UTVs to be driven on the roadway as long as you go through and get them tagged with your county tag office. A UTV, as you can see from this graphic, you are going to have seats with the UTV, steering wheel, and you have between 2 and 6 riders, usually the amount of seats that you will have on a UTV. Some of the news articles Mason pointed out, there were actually more occupants in the UTV than there were seats. So that's, again, another terrible factor going into the high fatality rates that we are seeing across the state. And then the ATVs, these are not legal to ride on roadways. If you see these on roadways, it is completely illegal and they cannot have a tag on them. Even riding, a lot of times people will think you can ride on the side of the road. That is even the ditches and the sides of the road are still considered part of your roadway. And so that is illegal to ride there as well. These are classified with having handlebars, and it is usually a straddle seat with the 1 to 2 people in that seat. And they can have 3, 4, or 6 wheels. And so these actually they're utilized a lot, and you'll see them riding on roads very frequently, but it is illegal and there's no way to get them tagged. With the new law that passed, it only allowed for the UTVs that are tagged through the state of Georgia, which means they also have to carry insurance on them. So you have to go through that process as well, but they can only be ridden on county roads. So of course, pretty obvious. You're not supposed to be riding them on the major interstates. We do see, as Mason and I drive across the state a lot to work with farmers, we've seen them on state highways and U.S. highways across Georgia, unfortunately. Just last week, Mason had an incident of one driving up and down a U.S. highway. Some cities, this is changing across Georgia, but for the most part, they are not allowed on city streets. But some cities are now allowing you to go and register your UTV with them, which is a separate process. You have to go through both processes if your city allows it, and then they will be able to be allowed to ride in that specific city where they have registered it at as well. But this is up to the rider to know and to do their research and background homework to know which are county roads, which are city roads, and then the state highways as well. You can only cross the roads that are not county roads. You cannot be riding up and down the county roads, or up and down the roads that are not county roads. This is so we got really lucky to be able to partner with the Georgia Public Safety Training Center in Forsyth to show what happens during a UTV crash. We had an old UTV from a research farm here at UGA, and they had a compact car that we were able to put on their crash test course and go out there for the day and show what happens when a collision occurs. Mason, if you want to go ahead. So this was a very small car. It was a Ford Focus, and almost the same size as a UTV, but the impact was still would have resulted in fatalities to both of the driver and the occupant of the UTV. So it is just, we're using that in a lot of our safety awareness videos. Mason, you can go to the next. We've actually taken the UTV that was involved in that crash, and we have it on a trailer that we take it to outreach events. And we talk to, you'll see on the left-hand side, this was one of the safety days with the kids, a school ag awareness day. And then we also go to different just public outreach events with it as well and talk through why these are inherently dangerous on the roads and what we can do to be safer with them. One of the big um, impacts for this grant is to do a lot of outreach and education for the public. We're developing a social media packet that will come out here at the end of September for organizations, for public safety facilities to be able to utilize and post, to take our post and be able to post them across their platforms. They'll be for a whole year. And so we're excited for that to be able to go out and for organizations to have content to share and really raise awareness on the walls, the dangers, and safe riding practices. And then this was another public awareness video that we have made that really goes into a lot of the rules. Mason, if you want to go ahead and play that.
Out here on the back roads of rural Georgia, ATVs and UTVs are a part of life. Increasingly, so are the accidents and deaths they cause. Georgia has the fifth highest number of reported fatalities in the nation for off-road highway vehicles. That's why it's important to stay legal to stay safe. Knowing what's legal and safe can reduce accidents and save lives. Not all off-road vehicles are the same. Under Georgia law, UTVs and ATVs are different. Which vehicle you operate matters for safety, equipment requirements, and where you can legally ride. So let's break down the differences. If it has handlebars and you straddle the seat, it's an ATV. If it has a steering wheel and passengers sit side by side, it's a UTV. ATVs have 3, 4, or 6 wheels, and ATVs are off-road only, so pavement is never an ATV's playground. UTVs have 4 wheels, bucket or bench seats, seat belts, and a roll cage. A roadworthy UTV can travel 25 to 65 miles per hour. To be legal on the road, you need headlights, taillights, brake lights, a rearview mirror, and seat belts. Drivers must also carry a valid driver's license, a county-issued license plate, and insurance. UTVs can be driven on paved county roads only, no interstate, state highways, U.S. highways, or city streets. So, keep it on county roads to keep it legal.
One of the things that was mentioned in the video that we are really trying to work a lot towards, because you'll see this, especially going up and down the roadways like Mason and I have seen a lot of teenagers or even younger than teenagers driving these UTVs and utilizing them just as toys, essentially. As parents, we got to be very cognizant and proactive in making sure that our kids stay safe on UTVs, making sure they know the rules, making sure they're not getting out there on the roadways. Like was mentioned in the video, you have to have a driver's license. We have to do a better job of making sure we know where the keys are to these vehicles. Oftentimes, it's easy to just have keys laying around and for us to go off to work, and kids are left at home and have access to a UTV, and all of a sudden they're with their friends and they're on a roadway. Split seconds can change lives and can drastically change families for generations after an accident. One of the things that we have really tried to expand upon, that was not our original purpose, was doing videos related more geared towards kids. As we've been at a lot of these public awareness days, we've heard from kids actually talk about how many injuries they've had on these UTVs, broken arms, and that's, thankfully those kids are still okay. So we're doing a superhero videos related to UTV safety for the children as we go to these safety days. And then another thing that we're working on um, currently, all this is on road. really featured on pavement because that is what the Governor's Office of Highway Safety is intended for, is how to reduce on-road injuries and fatalities. We have noticed, and of course, these are designed to be off-road, but so many accidents are still occurring off-road, and we need to do more education around that. So we're currently applying for a grant to do specific off-road UTV safety as well. So that way we kind of hit both sides of people using it around the farm off-road, because recently, within the past month, we've had a new client come into the agribility program that we were mentioning earlier, who was utilizing a UTV around the farm off-road. It overturned, and now the farmer has a spinal cord injury, and is in a wheelchair and going through rehabilitation at the Shepherd Center. So the accidents happen very quickly. There's a lot of ways that we can reduce the accidents that do happen with these. Slowing down, of course, is a major thing. These are extremely powerful, and when you put them on pavement, they behave radically different than when they behave the way they behave off-road. And so slowing down, taking turns at slower speeds, not taking aggressive turns, giving yourself plenty of time and plenty of turning radius can make it a lot safer on these. And so also, as we mentioned earlier, with some of the crashes that have occurred, riding during daylight hours is a huge thing with these as well. Making sure people can see you as well as you can see other people. Unfortunately, these are used a lot during enjoyment, which they are very enjoyable, but sometimes after, riding after dark, just as a joyride, can drastically increase the dangers. So that's the main thing of our program, is really trying to educate the public on safe practices and how to be legal while riding these, because unfortunately the vast majority of people dying out there, they have not had any education on them. You can go and purchase them without having to take a training course or safety curriculum. And then also they don't know all the laws around it either. The majority are not actually registered and applying for the law, adhering to the laws that are occurring in the collisions. And so if we get this education out to them and let them know the safe practices, then hopefully we can reduce a lot of these.
You want me to play Mr. Torque videos?
That's okay.
Okay. So this was just a do what?
The videos weren't coming across real great on our end.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to hear.
I got you. So anyways, like Kyle said, on top of people not following the laws, also we're seeing a general lack of law enforcement around the laws. I live in a small town down here in South Georgia, and there's a Dollar General right next door to the police department. And probably twice a week, I'll go past the Dollar General and see side by sides in the parking lot right next door to the police department on a federal highway within the city limits. There's just absolutely zero enforcement of what the laws are. So we've got to hopefully get law enforcement into enforcing these laws as well. I think that will help a lot. But I understand, there are only so many police officers, especially in a town like Sycamore, Georgia, where there's only around, a few hundred people. So it is kind of hard to regulate everything like this all the time. But also, if you're having any type of events where something like this would be pertinent to the subject of the event, we'd be happy to bring it out there. We have two side-by-sides, actually, that we have done some crash testing with. One was on the rollover bars and the protection on that, and then the other one was the video that you saw earlier in the presentation. So we're always happy to bring that out. I'm taking it to Perry this weekend. They're having the big hunting and fishing show up there in Perry, Georgia at the fairgrounds. And I'm going to have the Polaris up there as a display. So anything like that, whether it's big event, small event, rural safety, rural health, any of that, we're happy to bring this to. John, you're still muted.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Mason and Kyle, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm glad you answered the question. And if you'll put it in the chat, Mason, again, the how to contact you. if someone wants to bring the program to an event in their area or with a group. Um, you know, I was going to ask this question, and you covered it about the you quite frequently I see along the highways people on four wheelers and both the ATVs and the utility vehicles driving on the side of the road, and at pretty high speeds and everything often too, which always seems a little crazy to me because you never know when there's a pothole in that the grass and that sort of thing. So I was wondering whether or not that was it was legal, but you see that quite frequently off of the highways, particularly in rural areas. So and so I'm glad that you answered that question that that is also illegal.
Yeah.
It's not just on the pavement. And then that clarification that it's only county roads.
Hmm.
Um, Now, and I know this is a little off topic, but where do and I think this is you see this more and more in even urban areas, um, golf carts as well. Does this program address in any way sort of operation of those, or is that classified as how is that classified?
Yeah, so they are actually classified separately. And for us, it makes actually going through the data very difficult because they get, as I mentioned earlier, they get classified wrong a lot of the time. A lot
Okay.
of times UTVs are called golf carts just because that's the first thing law enforcement sees in their check boxes, and they may not take the time to go down and see there actually is a subheading for the ATVs or UTVs. And so we have to filter through a lot of data because of that, but they are classified differently. Our program is really not addressing those just because
Okay.
we are, you do see them a lot in cities. You're not seeing as high of fatality numbers with those because they're not going as fast. A lot of the injuries and fatalities are occurring because they are going so fast down the road, and it's a single vehicle accident a lot of times for these because of um, turning, even just curves on the road because of the rate of speed. These are capable of traveling that you lose control so quickly. The golf carts you're seeing are more collisions, with vehicles, which is extremely is dangerous, but it does occur a lot less, especially like when you mentioned rural versus urban areas. Your urban areas like Peachtree City, that was actually a planned development for golf carts. They have actually divided out areas for them. And so that helps drastically reduce the incidences. And then people are just not utilizing golf carts as much anymore in rural areas, I don't think, versus the UTVs because they just don't have the capabilities that the UTVs do. And
Yeah,
Mason,
there's a
Thank
really
you for
good
that.
chart that breaks down all the different types of vehicles. I think it's Kyle, was that on DOT's website or Department of Public Health, I believe, maybe.
I'm not sure, but thank you, Vanessa, for yeah, we'll get you some code, some information to be able to share with the code enforcement and a lot of things. Yeah, it's just knowing the knowing the laws, knowing some like Mason mentioned with law enforcement, they probably don't have the capacity to be stopping and enforcing a lot of it all. But it's just education can help if they were to pull someone over and just let them know about the laws and don't even have to write the ticket to someone can really help to reduce the fatalities that we're seeing and people riding them inappropriate. Um, we've seen we've noticed a lot even just with UGA that we're utilizing these on research farms and across multiple campuses, and they are not even adhering to the laws. So we have a lot to do, and we're not looking at other people and saying you need to do it as well. We are looking at ourselves and saying we have to improve upon our processes and making sure that our own staff members are safe. So um, it takes all of us to make sure that we're starting to have an actual real impact on keeping people safe.
I did drop to the chat the link to the Department of Public Safety's document there, and that breaks down how they're all basically defined for Georgia. So when we're saying UTVs, UTVs are for roadway purposes are defined as an MPOHV, which is a multi-purpose off-highway vehicle.
Mason, you mentioned and you talked about the reasons for this, but I think it's relevant enough to a lot of the folks that are on this virtual meeting today. Um, when we talk about that accidents and fatalities are 4 times as likely to occur in the rural areas versus the urban areas, you mentioned some of the reasons for that. Can you just go over that again
Yeah,
as to those reasons? Because I think it's really germane to a lot of the missions of the different organizations that are represented here today.
yeah, certainly. And, I don't have any hard backing data. So this is really more theoretical, driven than anything. But we do know a lot about, the access to medical care. So if somebody's not within that golden hour, a severe injury most likely turns into a fatality, right? So a lot of our rural communities don't fall within that golden hour to a level 1 trauma center. So if they have a severe accident on one of these, most likely they're not going to survive that. And then also with it being rural and somebody by themselves, if something happens, no one's around to see it, report it, or get that quick medical care to them. So there's a good chance that they're not going to get timely medical care. Just like with farm accidents, when a farm accident happens, if a farmer is by themselves, very rarely is someone else around to, report it. So they usually may be there for a couple hours before somebody even realizes something's wrong. And then also, it's just so much more wide open space, right? So there's more room to run. There's more room to get these vehicles up to speed. There's more opportunity for a severe accident versus in a community setting in a rural or an urban or suburban area where they just don't have the room to get them up to those high rates of speed to have those accidents that would be so severe. So that would be my working theories on why we see less accidents, but a lot more severe injuries and fatalities from them.
Yeah, and all of these reasons are why this conversation in this kind of setting and in these events out in rural areas and events like the one that you're doing in Perry coming up, that's so important that these conversations are happening because I bet there's just very few people that are fully aware of the laws in this that probably think they're aware of it just because they think, well, if I see my friends or my neighbors doing this, then it must, and I don't see the local law enforcement pulling them over, then it's probably okay. And so thank you so much for doing this. Does anybody in our audience have some questions for Kyle and Mason today?
I have a question. My name's Deborah Cox. I'm a retired 4-H educator, and I'm also women's committee chair for our local farm bureau. So I still get to work with kids. I know years ago there was an ATV program that was done by extension agents that was taught to different ones in the community, but that's been a long time ago. But are y'all going to be at Sunbelt Expo in October?
Yes.
We are, yes.
And Jay Porter, the agent from Pulaski County, has a program around four-wheelers, and we're working to partner with him for some of our trainings as well to involve more with not just side-by-sides, but four-wheelers as well. And then Brooklyn Wassel, the ag agent in Pike County, has done some work around four-wheeler and ATV safety as well.
Okay. Well, I'm glad y'all have brought this back and everything because I think it's very vital, very important because, sometimes parents don't get the opportunity to teach their kids all particulars on safety of these vehicles, especially if they're, have a farm and that sort of thing, because there have been quite a few crashes over the years that involve young people with these different vehicles.
Yes,
Yeah.
it definitely is very prevalent, and education can go a long way and helping
thank
to
y'all
reduce
so
it. Thank
much.
you. Yeah. Where were you at as a 4-H extension
I
educator?
was in Mitchell County. I retired in 22.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kid, she's 15 and she's in 4-H and just absolutely loves it. And so we've been she's here in Tift County. So our agent now, Katrina, I've been talking with her some about involving some of the local 4-H kids into doing some stuff around this program as well.
Katrina's a great 4-H agent.
Yes.
I've known her ever since she came into play with Extension when she was in Adel County. So she's all about the kids and everything. So this would be a great project for some of them in the state to pick up to talk about because it's a current subject matter that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And we will be at Sunbelt with our UTVs. We have a big outdoor space. It's called the Agribility Farm and Garden Learning Station. That
Okay.
we have a lot of assistive technology out there as well, but we will have this program this year to be highlighted out there. So it is usually I'm not sure who's next to our space this year.
I think it's directly across and one block over from the Farm Bureau building.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. Thank y'all for what you're doing.
Thank you for attending today.
Yeah. So, any other questions for Mason or Kyle before I wrap us up with a few comments? All right. Well, again, Mason and Kyle do a great job with this, and the Farm Again program, the Agribility program, which is part of the National Agribility Project, is amazing. The equipment and all that they can demonstrate and even help connect people to that have suffered, or are dealing with some sort of disability that might otherwise keep them from farming is just I get inspired every time I see one of their demonstrations, and I'm so thankful. I know my family, which is in farming, has been blessed to not have those kind of challenges, and I can just imagine though what it means to a family that has been impacted by that they have a way to work beyond that challenge so that they can farm and provide and keep doing what they love and their profession. And so I appreciate that greatly. I do want to mention before we go, just a reminder to everybody that we have now a network of over 25 individuals that are certified to provide comment training around the state, and some of them are represented here today. And that is stands for changing our mental and emotional trajectory. But the real meat of the matter is that is a training that's about an hour and a half long. That program teaches it's out of agriculture for agricultural communities, and it teaches us how to have conversation with those about whom we're concerned, that we know there's something going on there, that they're maybe stressed or they're demonstrating mental health and well-being challenges. And it's just such a pragmatic program that is easy to learn from. It's not highly technical. It's just conversational. So I do want to say that we, those of us, I think there's 4 of us at Mercer now that are trained in this. And we've got folks from other organizations like Farm Bureau, the Georgia Foundation for Agriculture, Fort Valley State, and UGA that are trained in this now, and we can do these. And if you'll let us know, we'd be happy to either come do a program or get somebody connected that can do that program. And it's awesome. Yeah, Vanessa said, yeah, she's certified. Jennifer Dunn at DBHDD as well. And so, like I said, there's over 25, and we're going to have another regional trainer training coming up in September. So you can contact us or Georgia Foundation for Agriculture, and we'll get you connected to that. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We also offer things like community resiliency model, stress management training, and others. So please let us know if we can come help in your community. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap for August's meeting. And thank you so much again to Kyle and to Mason. You're awesome as always, and always enjoy hearing from you on whatever topic. So thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. Take care, and we'll see you next month.